Cover 3 Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcast on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, aka the Cover 3 Tailgate, where, among other things I noticed, Danny, we had a little bit of reaction from our Heisman Trophy draft. Now, of course, as you see here by the headline, we are going to be digging into the Big 12 win totals part 2. That means Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, Utah, and West Virginia. All of our win total picks. Danny's mine, and though Bud can't be with us, he has sent in his picks along the way. So I guess I gotta ask you, DK. We did it on CBS Sports Network. You can listen to the full discussion wherever you get your podcasts or watch it on youtube.com/cover3. You know, we shared our lists, a little bit of an audit of the draft. How do you think everybody did, and what kind of reaction have you gotten?
So this was not by design, but a couple people did point out that I did not have one SEC player on it. Although I did make it clear during the draft, like Austin Simmons was on my radar. He was somebody I wanted to snatch up. That was probably the only one. I had Garrett Nussmeier on my board. I thought maybe there was a chance he'd drop back around to me, but as one of the front runners, didn't see that. So I did see some people pointing out that. One of the interesting comments said, outside of Arch Manning, Bud's list is trash. Like, I like the strong opinion there. I even think Bud was a little worried because I think in his game theory, I don't know if he planned out DJ Lagway's injury issues, like cropping up again. I think he kind of stuck with that. But I think it was clear, like, I went a little bit safer than almost everybody. Bud went pretty safe with Arch Manning, right? It's a little bit chalky. He's the leader, but then he took some flyers and went out there. And I think you had probably more similar to mine, a little bit of safety, but I like that you went with Jeremiah Smith, took him off the board as the best player in college football this year. So I think it was a pretty good mixed bag.
So I did not realize, Bud said on the show, I think the Heisman Trophy winner is going to come from the SEC. I am picking all SEC. Like, he showed his cards, and it wasn't until I did my own audit that I was like, and look, not an SEC name to be found on Danny Kanell's list. So you say that this was not intentional. This is just the way it broke down, that DK was anti-SEC and Bud was all SEC. That just is total happenstance.
Yes, and if you go with my philosophy, which I kind of shared yesterday, is I want to go with guys that have already seen do it a little bit, like the total flyers. Like I had the number one pick, could have taken Arch Manning, like the biggest upside guy with all the attention, with all the hype, could have taken him. I just wanted to see somebody who had already played. Same line of thinking with Drew Aller, Sam Leavitt. And then when I got to the fourth pick, even though he's a first-year starter, Dante Moore, at least we had seen him play at UCLA. Like, at least he's been around a little bit, finally getting his opportunity. So my philosophy just didn't afford me many guys to select from the SEC.
So, and as we are doing a little bit of a conference scoreboard, you've got obviously a heavy SEC presence. We've got 3 names coming from the Big Ten. That would be Drew Aller from Penn State, Dante Moore from Oregon, Jeremiah Smith, and then 2 from the Big 12, Sam Leavitt from Arizona State, Avery Johnson from K-State, and just 1 from the Atlantic Coast Conference. It was 1-1, Cade Klubnik, the number 1 overall pick. Since we are just sitting here, Longtime listeners of the Cover 3 podcast know this is an ACC boys show. So as the ACC boys ride again, who would be the second ACC name if you had to go past Cade Klubnik to reach for one?
I think it's clear it's one of 2 guys. And if I went with my philosophy a little bit safer, I would go with Kevin Jennings. But I was shocked that nobody took Carson Beck out of Miami. Like, he is the 5th, favorite in the odds right now. Kevin Jennings is pretty far below that, but he did get to the ACC title game last year, did make it to the playoffs. He hasn't been dealing with an elbow surgery that took place this offseason with Carson Beck does. But the reason I think I would probably go Carson Beck Like Kevin Jennings almost has to take SMU back to the playoffs or back to the ACC championship game. If he falls short of that, probably going to, not going to make it to New York. But if Carson Beck does take Miami to the ACC title game and does take them to the playoffs, then I think it's almost a lock that he gets there. I don't know if he can win it, though, because of the back-to-back from the same school. Like, I know we've seen that, but it does feel like because of what Cam Ward did last year and his stats were off the charts and he had highlight reel plays, I don't know if it's realistic to think that Carson Beck could win it either.
I think it's going to be really, really hard to replicate Cam Ward's statistical profile for Miami's offense to replicate what they did last year. And if those comparisons pop up, then it's going to be tough for Carson Beck along the way. Here's the storyline. I can't say that I've got a football reason for this, but in terms of just enjoying the sport and the way we talk about it, Rhett Lashlee is a chip on the shoulder kind of coach, if there's anyone, right? And he has gone through all of these power rankings that are released in the quarterback power rankings. And I see Rhett Lashlee on Twitter jumping in the mentions. Like, okay, like he does the little taking notes emoji. Like Kevin Jennings has been overlooked and underrated when we think about the quarterback scene. So he has a chance, certainly, while the names at the top of the odds board are constantly having to play to that expectation. Kevin Jennings does have a chance if he comes out and he's lighting the world on fire and he plays a tougher schedule. Like they're going to play Clemson in the regular season. So there will be more opportunities in big games, big stage games. I like Jennings as that shout. I think that's the next one. The only other one I would add is a quarterback who I saw throwing passes this morning at fall camp, the new one at Louisville, Miller Moss. If he in Jeff Brom's system is able to go out there and have a big one, I'd add him just to the ACC discussion. But clearly, as we just had, only Cade Klubnik, not a lot of Heisman contenders coming from the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Thank you mentioning Cam Ward did not win the Heisman, number 1 overall draft pick. That's what I was confusing those two with. Travis Hunter, of course, as a voter. I did have Cam Ward second, I believe, last year.
You voted
that's where it came in.
Yeah. Hunter first?
Yeah.
And then Ward second. Did you do Genty third?
Yeah. Okay. I might not even have Genty on the list. If you're in the group of 5, you've got to set records, and he came close. And with the compilation of games, I think a group of 5 is a different level. Like I almost feel like they should have, much like the FCS has their Player of the Year awards, which
Walter
we've
Payton
seen
Award,
Mark
right?
Gronowski win. I'm a big fan of his, but like I almost feel like the group of 5 should have their own Heisman, type award.
I like that a lot. Also opening up fall camp. We appreciate everybody for checking that out. Again, you can listen to the discussion on yesterday's podcast from our CBS Sports Network show and watch it on YouTube. Tennessee is opening fall camp. Got a little fall camp footage of Joey Aguilar, but the big storyline right now around Tennessee, in addition to their quarterback room, is the outlook for one of their bright and talented sophomores, defensive back by the name of Boo Carter. There was reportedly an incident with the team. Josh Heupel discussing that there's still things that he has to do. Are you concerned at all by the disciplinary situation that we've got over there at Tennessee? As Jermod McCoy, who is expected to be a starter, tears his ACL in January. He's not going to be ready for the start of the season. I do not believe. I could be wrong about that. So as Boo Carter, who jumped in as a kind of slot corner on defense, but also an effective punt returner for the Vols, any alarm bells going off for you as that becomes a storyline around the Vols?
Yeah, I also played a little bit of slot receiver in the spring too. Looked like they were counting on him. Remember, Squirrel White is gone. They lost production at receiver. I don't know. I don't think so. I do hear what you're saying. I mean, my thing is, where does the leadership come from on this team? I think they were expecting Nico to make that big jump as a leader, and I think that was lacking last year some too. My biggest concern is about Joey Aguilar or whoever's playing quarterback for the Vols. But, without a weapon, whether he's a starting, X or Z receiver, or whether he's a, just somebody that adds a little bit of depth and somebody who's dynamic as a playmaker, that's concerning. But I do feel like Heupel's system is kind of like everyone's running these routes. You get a lot of people vertically, you stretch the field, and they're kind of can be replaced. And with the level of talent that they have there, I don't know if it's that significant of a loss.
I would hope that this leads to a situation for him to get back. I saw in the like sports talk radio poisoned part of my brain the opportunity to do this number right here. And again, I'm going to like preface this like, I really think we got a culture issue. Danny, I think we got a culture issue. We got guys fighting each other. We got guys asking for raises. We got, I mean, this is, but I truly believe that for a young player, and I want to say this again, he was a freshman last season. It happens. I remember, how about this? Statute of limitations has expired. I remember training camp fights of peers. I was obviously not in the locker room or on the team. Do you remember some high tensions, especially at the start of fall camp when everybody started to get back together?
Absolutely. Like fights are really a part of it. Although I don't know if we should call it training camp anymore. I feel like we should call it sleepaway camp because they're just not as physical. Like they don't have 2-a-days. They're not as bad. And there used to be so much frustration and you'd see this pent up aggression that was kind of there. I don't know if you can replicate it, but you have spent an entire offseason together. Most of the time, the fights were either the DBs and the wide receivers, which were kind of cute because they couldn't do much damage. It's kind of like an NBA fight. Like they just start, like punching with their helmets on. Yeah, exactly. The offensive and defensive line, those were the scraps that you got worried about because you're talking about bears, like wrestling, and you can see some damage done. Like if a bear, you see two bears fight and like you can get that one claw that goes through or the teeth, they get a bite. You can see some damage done. That was the biggest fear there. So I saw some absolute brawls on the field. One time I saw it come back in the locker room. That's the other thing that I think concerns you as a coach is you want to leave all your differences on the field. Like in whether coaches tell you or not, they actually do want to see their players fighting on the field. It shows that they've got like a pent-up aggression. It shows that there's a want to. I think even Dion last year, there was some video of him at practice kind of saying that. Like he wanted to see players fighting with one another, but you've got to check it at the practice field. The moment it comes back in the locker room, that can be problematic. Saw that happen a couple times, but for the most part, the ones in the field, just kind of part of the territory.
Yeah, and to be clear, that is just a trip down memory lane for our enjoyment. The only thing we have with the Boo Carter story is a report of an altercation. Fall camp opened today, but it is fall camp season. All right, before we hit a break and jump into our Big 12 win totals, I just wanted to get the juices flowing. I saw this from our guy Tim Albin, the new Charlotte 49ers head coach. I think it's a good message. Mikey, can we hear from our guy?
But I tell you, what excites me is these guys just smile, man. I mean, these guys they want to be good. We got a long way to go, but they are eager. And they are just like, a dog. They're hot, but they are eager to learn. Can't wait to throw the frisbee. They want to go.
That's great.
I love that.
That is great. Anytime you get the stimulating an animal noise. I mean, we've heard cats meow, meow. Right. We've heard dogs barking. Now that was the first time I've heard a panting dog, but I do like it. It's a pretty good description. That is what you want from your players. Like, you better hope they're not like the old lazy dog that comes in there like, oh, and that again was part of the offensive linemen were like the ones that were like the cattle you had to herd over there. So I'd be excited too if my players were out there panting like, let's go get the frisbee.
Listen, the weather in the state of North Carolina for our listeners that are here with me is it gets you panting just going to the car. So I can't imagine getting fall camp going. But yeah, Tim Albin did amazing work at Ohio. Fired up to see what the 49ers are able to do this year. A team that's eager to learn and panting like a dog. Well, coming up on the other side, we dive into the rest of the Big 12 with our win total picks, starting with Kansas Jayhawks, Kansas State, and more next.
Name's Conrad Harrigan, family man. And if you cross my family, well, you'd better pray.
Mobland, new series streaming March 30th on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast before we get into win totals. Fantasy football fans, you, I hope, have already seen the opportunity to participate in the FFT Open. Now, what is the FFT Open? We are talking about hundreds of spots across multiple leagues. And what you can do is you can buy a spot in one of these leagues to compete against everybody else. I've got a league. Tom's got a league. The spots are open for sale, but the money goes to a good cause. That is the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So we have, according to my notes here, just 20 spots total left. I saw it's 12 teams for all the different leagues. And I think we've got 3 left of the open spots in the Chip League. I haven't checked on Tom. So if you want to get in there, again, you purchase the spot, the money goes to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and we compete all against each other, both within our own individual leagues, the 12 of us in the Chip League, but then also against everybody else. So go and check that out. We've got a link in the description here on YouTube. We've got a link in the description wherever you get your podcast as well. Go and get that. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll be competing against each other, and of course, the money goes to a good cause. All right, Danny. We gotta carry a lot of weight here for the second half of the Big 12. I gotta ask, are you ready to count it up?
Ready. Let's do it.
As much as I think it's the under is a safe play, like I can't even.
Count them up. Count them up. How many kids are gonna win this fall?
I can't fathom 8 wins.
How many kids are gonna win this fall?
I just can't. I don't see it. It's not on there. It's not the schedule I'm looking at. Unless there's another schedule somewhere.
And we begin with the Kansas Jayhawks, a head coach in Lance Leipold, who is, we are a big fan of Lance Leipold and all the work he's done at multiple stops. They were a little bit of a chaos team last year, losing a lot of one-score games early, kind of played themselves out of really being in contention for a bowl game, you thought, until they started ruining everyone's Big 12 title dreams, knocking off contenders all the way down the stretch. Now they enter this season with an over-under win total at FanDuel Sportsbook of 7.5, heavy juice to the under, so over plus 132, under minus 162. What are we doing here with the Kansas team that has a tough? Listen, the Kansas-Missouri rivalry rocks. I'm just going to say that on rivalries that sometimes get overlooked. I'm excited to see that one. That game will be on the road for the Jayhawks, but then Fresno State and Wagner as well. What do you make of Kansas and their chances to hit 7.5?
So this one's tough for me because I love Lance Leipold. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. When I went through the schedule, I was, putting down the W's and putting down the L's, and usually go with what you feel most confident about. And I got to 6 wins that I felt pretty good about. But like the Missouri one in Como, I think it's a tough place to play. And ultimately it came down to, if I felt good about 6, I needed 2 wins that I could talk myself into to get over that 7.5. And maybe I could, because I'm such a big believer in Lance Leipold. Remember last year, they had to travel a lot, and they didn't get to play in their own backyard. They had to play at Arrowhead because their stadium was being redone. Now that's done. This all to me comes down to Jalen Daniels. And I know a lot of it comes down to his health. Like, how healthy is it? But he didn't play great last year either. Like, I just wonder if the outlier was the year when did he win Big 12 Player of the Year, or was he preseason Big 12 Player of the Year that year?
He was preseason Big 12 Player of the Year going into the season, I think.
And he played great the season before. So it was like, it made a ton of sense. But I just wonder if that season where they had their sort of Cinderella story year was more of an outlier. Like, he struggled with the interception bug, struggled throwing the ball last year. So combine that with also the injury issues that crop up. And I do think they're better at backup with Cole Ballard. Like, they're back kind of where they're not just totally exposed at the backup position. It's hard for me to make that jump. So I understand why it's under, juice to the under. I'm going to go under. I'm going to follow the money there and say under as well.
It's so funny because as I was doing my Kansas review, I thought Jalen Daniels had missed more time than he did.
Right.
He played 12 games. He had 14 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. That's not good. And it's because we thought it was a lingering issue. We'd go into weeks being like, we don't know what Daniels' back is going to be. We talk about the difficulty of predicting, what you're going to get from a quarterback who might be dealing with an injury like that. He was suiting them up. He logged, double-digit pass attempts in all 12 games. So the disappointing thing is that he did play. It's not as though I can imagine that he's going to be like, okay, well, now he's going to be healthy and now he's going to be back at it. That just needs to be improvement across the board. Now, however, I love the way that team rallied. I love the way that team responded and didn't quit on the season, not once, trying to push it all the way to the end. I have them 8-4. Okay.
Woohoo!
So I'm gonna take that little plus money. That one might be showing up at the end of August when we do win total locks. I'll give them wins: Fresno State, Wagner, West Virginia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, home sweet home. So I'm gonna give them all those home games that they've got. I've got them all as wins. I do think at Missouri, you just got to chalk that one up as an L. And then we get into the toss-ups, where among the toss-ups, I'll say at UCF. I'll say at Arizona. I'm considering them a toss-up, but ultimately probably leaning yes. And that's where they would need to get one more from the at Texas Tech, Kansas State at home, Utah at home. I think the Jayhawks can do it. So I've got them over 7.5. Give me that little plus money, plus 132.
I love the way you're thinking. And by the way, I'm not running to the window to bet the under on this one, even though it is juiced. I hope you're right. And I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if they were one of those teams in a tightly contested kind of wild year with the Big 12 where they do win a lot of their one-possession games. Somebody chimed in, I don't get the Lance Leipold love. I would push back significantly on that. The dude's won multiple national championships, and consider what he took over. This program was a mess when he took it over. Remember, he took it over after spring football practice when they were arguably the worst program in college football when he took it over. And the fact that he's able to kind of at least turn out, at least to be in the bowl conversation last year. And, without Jalen Daniels, the year before, like 9-4 season, one of their best seasons they've had in 15, 20 years. I'm firmly a believer. I mean, he's doing more with less. They do not have the resources that even the Big 12, a lot of teams have.
We look at Buffalo right now as one of the better programs in the MAC. It can also be absolute in the pits as well. And he got Buffalo up and running. The Wisconsin Whitewater success that you mentioned. And, full transparency here. Some of what we do comes from our conversations with the coach, comes from our conversation with other coaches and how they deal with people. And I don't have a lot of people who know Lance Leipold or have worked with him or around him who have a lot of bad to say. And look, coaches will talk so much trash off the record about each other, and you just don't get that a lot when you ask about Lance Leipold.
By the way, that comment was from Wet Blanket, so I guess maybe he was just living up to the name. Yes.
How many games are going to win this fall? That is a big question for the Kansas State Wildcats, coming off what I think has to be looked at as a disappointing season. They enter last year trying to play for the Big 12 title. Avery Johnson, as we discussed in the Heisman draft, coming in, expecting to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country or in that conversation. He was not. Kansas State was not. They lost games they shouldn't have lost. They just had some real head-scratching performances, and it really started early when they went on the road to BYU and just kind of let that game slip away. And we talked about Provo at night and all those, mystical things that seem to happen when BYU's playing under the lights. But I think that for Kansas State, there was a consistency that was lacking. And so now I think they come in a little bit maybe under the radar, but the odds makers give them one of the highest win totals in the conference, over under of 8.5. And I love this one, Danny, because we got minus 110 each way. It's just up to us to go and figure it out. How are you looking at Kansas State and the 2025 season?
So I'm bullish on Kansas State. I think they go over this win total. I think they could be playing in the Big 12 championship game, and I think they could win it. Now, what I am banking on is that the expectations last year with Avery Johnson were way too high, right? In the whole narrative of Chris Kleiman sending Will Howard off to Ohio State because he's going to be better. That was a risky move that they had to make. And, Will Howard goes and wins the national championship. But I think with those expectations, I think Avery Johnson played like he had to carry the team on his back. And you mentioned that BYU game. Awful game for him. 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. The other kind of surprising losses they had. Houston, he had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Against Arizona State, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he had this 3-game skid that cost him every one. And turnovers are so valuable in young quarterbacks. That's why I'm very hesitant to pick conference championship winners, national championship winners with first-year starting quarterbacks, because as rough as it was, it's kind of normal, especially in a league like the Big 12. The one thing, you mentioned it already, they have been harping all offseason and all spring to Avery Johnson about getting more consistent. Like, you don't have to make the hero play. You don't have to make every throw. It's okay to take a sack. And that's a lesson that young quarterbacks have to learn. I think they clean up some of his mistakes. I had him, I don't want to say well over, but I do have them over the 8.5. I had them when I went through and was drawing it up, I went through 10-2 and I was like, whoa. Enthusiasm. But I do have them getting to the Big 12 championship game. So I've got Kansas State at 10-2. Matt Wells also taking over as offensive coordinator. He was pass game coordinator. I think that opens things up. I think Avery Johnson's going to play cleaner. I'm a big believer in Chris Kleiman. I think the defense is going to be better too. So I'm going to go ahead and say over that 8.5.
We like Matt Wells, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Covering him back at Utah State. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt Wells. I think he got a raw deal at Texas Tech. Like, I think he's a really good football coach.
Oh, let's go. November 1st, Matt Wells, Texas Tech revenge game, cooking it up.
I did have a W on that one too.
Preseason lock. I say this with a lot of these teams that are very good, but especially in a conference like this. Hey, look, zero certified losses. There are challenging spots, but there is not a game where I think that Kansas State is going to be outclassed. However, I also gave them 6 toss-ups. So, that's what we're talking about. Like, floor 6-6, ceiling is like 11-1 or something along those lines. When I'm going through and I'm splitting the difference, I think it is good that Texas Tech game is going to be in Manhattan. Obviously, the Iowa State game is going to be out in Ireland. TCU game is going to be at home. Those difficult road trips, I think the ones that stand out clearly at Utah, but then also at Baylor, you come back from Ireland, I think they start stacking wins. They go into that. If they win in Ireland, they might probably 5-0 going into that spot. That could get a little bit tricky going to Waco to play a very, very good Baylor team. Ultimately, I landed at 9-3. I'm with you. I think that this is over 8.5. And I think that, having to pick a Big 12 title matchup, I think that Kansas State's got to be on the short list of teams that you expect to be there. So 4-1, 5-0 going into the Baylor game, and then kind of egg in a spoon, make sure you don't slip up against a Colorado, Oklahoma State, coming in. So I am also on the over for Kansas State.
Count them out.
Count up all the years that Oklahoma State was in the postseason. 18 straight years Oklahoma State was playing in a bowl game, and that streak was snapped last season in just kind of the bottom falling out at Oklahoma State. Now they come back this year. Over under win total at FanDuel Sportsbook of 5.5. Now the over is plus 146. The under is minus 180. Listen, I'm going to play spoiler alert here. I don't like the vibes of betting the under here. Like, I don't want to pay $180 to win 100 betting against Mike Gundy. Are you going to take the bait and take that juice or take that little plus 146 betting on Mike Gundy?
All day long. They've only had one, or I should say 2 seasons. One was his first season as the head coach 2 decades ago. The other one was last year. So is this thing coming off the rails so much that they're going to go under that total? And if they're 5-7, they probably are, making a change, or Mike Gundy retires. They're figuring out something, an exit strategy of some sorts. Or are you going to go back to a team that just a few years ago was on the cusp of making the college football playoff? Now, I'm not going to go that far. I don't think they're going to be competing for the Big 12 championships. And I hate the fact that one of the non-conference games is probably an automatic loss at Oregon. But I'm still going to take the odds of what we've seen over an entire career from Mike Gundy. Like, I don't think the culture's as bad as people make it out. I mean, remember when he got busted with the shirt and people were just, he had the OAN shirt. And everybody's like, oh, his players hate him. And he's all these accusations against him. I don't think it's that bad. I think the season was awful. I think it's a wash. I think they come back stronger this year. So I'm on over, but there wasn't a lot of confident W's on there either. I just am a believer that again, like you were talking about, In a season where the Big 12 is so even, a lot of those one possession games, I think they're going to go his way. I don't feel great that they're playing Texas Tech on the road, but they do get Kansas State and Iowa State at home. I could see that in Baylor at home. Their toughest games they catch at home. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull off an upset in one of those three like marquee matchups and potentially ruin somebody else's Big 12 title hopes. I'm not like this team did beat Arkansas last year. That was, and I know Arkansas wasn't very good, but I still think physically they'll be better. That was one of the biggest surprises I've seen last year. I'm going to go, but they're going to revert back to the norm, which is over 5.5.
If I can put on my my Bud Elliott fishing shirt here and look at like just the raw talent of this, you're happy to see Arizona on this schedule. You're happy to see UCF on the schedule. You're happy to see Houston on the schedule. You are happy to see teams from the conference who are not noticeably better when it comes to the talent, because I do think Baylor has noticeably better talent. Texas Tech, clearly noticeably better talent. Kansas State as well. So you're at least giving yourselves opportunities where if you're betting on Mike Gundy being a good football coach who's going to put together a game plan, then you at least are not going to get out-talented the way you are against Oregon or some of those teams that we project to be near the top of the Big 12. I saw a comment in the tailgate. Who is the quarterback? My expectation is it's the sophomore Zane Flores. And the vibe that I got, Mike Gundy had a great response at Big 12 Media Days that was kind of like, yeah, I'm excited to see him too. We recruited him. We brought him here. This is somebody that we've always thought could be the Oklahoma State quarterback. If Flores gets it going, then yeah, we could see Oklahoma State's offense be able to take a big step forward. Remember, he did flip over the whole sort of coaching staff for the first time in a long time. So maybe this rejuvenates him. Maybe it doesn't. I will say to get to 6 wins, you got to get it done early. I don't love the way that the last 5 games break down in terms of 3 road games and your only 2 home games are Kansas State and Iowa State. You lose a couple you shouldn't in that run of like Arizona, Houston, Cincinnati, and then we might put them on the Q watch. So
yeah. And the best part about it, they're not playing 4 quarterbacks, which they've done a couple times in the last couple of years. Like there was an NHL style like hockey line shift, like a shift change with the quarterbacks, the way they were rolling them, so much uncertainty. And as Wet Blanket pointed out, look at him, all of a sudden he's optimistic. He's not a redshirt, just a redshirt freshman. He's also got a medical redshirt. So he's been there, familiar with the system. They kind of roll with him through the thick and the thin. I think that's a good thing.
Yep, absolutely. How many games are going to win this fall? Pertinent question for Sonny Dykes. TCU Horned Frogs were floundering in the middle of last season, and then they caught a little bit of fire at the end of the year. It was, I think, an encouraging sign for the Sonny Dykes operation with the way the Horned Frogs were able to finish. A lot of excitement about Josh Hoover coming into another year as the TCU quarterback and what he can do. That FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more, the over-under win total is at 6.5. Now, the over is -180. The under is +146. We've got the very much anticipated opener on Labor Day in Chapel Hill against Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels. But then I'll let you just take this where you want to go, because I see toss-up city. I've got toss-up city for TCU right now, a team that I've kind of pegged in that upper middle class or middle tier of the Big 12, confident in the quarterback, but don't think that they are worlds better than maybe the 10th or 11th best team. So how'd you end up breaking this down at with 6.5 -180?
This is probably the one I had the toughest time with. I kind of think there's value on the under from a betting perspective. I wrote down 6-6 or 7-5, and there were 2 games that I had, like the BYU Houston stretch down, final 2, last 3 games of the season, 2 of them are on the road. I had them needing to get one of those to go over. And so I'm like, can they get one of those? I think so. But I also wonder if there's a little bit to, like Josh Hoover, I love it. The Big 12 is the conference of quarterbacks. They have the best quarterback play in there. Like he's got to maintain that level of play throughout. I also had him losing both of their non-conference games early. I had him losing at Carolina. I had him losing the battle for the Iron Skillet. So like you start off 1-2, then you go to Arizona State. Like you start 1-3. How do you recover from that? Then they have Kansas State on the road. So I think there might be value on the under, but I do not feel good about this one whatsoever. I like Sonny Dykes. I think he'll get him back on track. It's wide open. The schedule, though, I think is one of the tougher ones in the league.
Okay, so I gave him Abilene Christian, certified win. Okay, we're good. We're good with that. I gave him Colorado at home a win.
I did too.
Okay. I gave him at Houston. I did give him that one. And I gave him Cincinnati. And that's it. Like every single one of them could be 4-8. I don't see a certified loss either. So dance with me on this one. Over 6.5 minus 180. Come on, man. Like you should be investing in Cover 3 merch. You don't need to pay $180 to win 100 on TCU winning 7 games. But can I interest you at FanDuel Sportsbook? TCU 8+ win season plus 100.
I still don't think there's value in it. Because I was leaning towards the under as being the value play. So I would just take the under and get the plus money on that as opposed to taking the shot that they get over. How do you what I'm trying to find the point spread against North Carolina. They are a dog there, right?
No, they are a 3-point favorite.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe feel a little bit better about that. See, I think it's going to be, I think that's the game where Bill Belichick shines, when he's had an entire training camp to game plan for one game against a quarterback who's good, but he's going to throw the kitchen sink at him because he can. He's been prepping just for that. So I almost like North Carolina in that spot. At home, feels like it's going to be excitement. It's going to be a good crowd. But that was one I did not give to him quite as confidently.
I think that there is going to be some wide-eyed Tar Heels when they run out of that tunnel, and I hope big brain Bill Belichick can get them mentally ready, because I've seen some North Carolina Tar Heels fans
plastered all over national television. Every pregame show is going to be there. That is going to be a big one.
Everyone's texts are going crazy.
To say the least.
That whole week on campus is going to be nuts. I've got it officially as a toss-up. But yeah, so my TCU 8+ win season at plus 100 is going 4-4 in what I have deemed the 8 toss-ups: North Carolina, SMU, Arizona State, Kansas State, Baylor, at West Virginia, Iowa State, at BYU. So if they could go 4-4 there, then I think that can be an 8-4 season. Maybe something else. If you are big, I know that I see some comments in the tailgate of people that like TCU as a Big 12 sleeper. Yeah, you can get a little plus 100 on a TCU 8+ win season. Well, coming up on the other side, we continue our Big 12 win totals, talking about the darling, the offseason story of the conference. It's that Texas Tech roster. All that and more next.
The crowd loves champions. Gladiator 2 is an epic spectacle. Remarkable! To amuse you is my only wish.
The glory is yours, not mine.
Very good. Gladiator 2, rated R. Now streaming on Paramount+.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, continuing to roll through the Big 12 win totals. A reminder that this is win total season. That means that next week, Monday and Wednesday, we'll be breaking down the ACC. The next week, Monday, Wednesday, breaking down the SEC. And then the Big 10. Win totals locks, week 0 locks. The season is here. As always, we'll be using these last couple Thursdays to catch up on news and talk to you in the tailgate with some mailbag questions. So be sure to get those in either through the 5-star big old bag of mail or through Spotify comments. All right, Texas Tech over under win total of 8.5. And this is over minus 152, under plus 124. I mean, the list of high-profile transfer portal additions is robust. It includes both sides of the ball. Two brand new pass rushers that I think are both going to be dynamite, potential first-team all-conference players. I think we're still counting on Baron Morton. So you need him not to have any kind of health issues, something that's popped up all throughout his career. What are we doing with the Red Raiders at 8.5?
So unfortunately, our sport has become an arms race, right? And it's who can spend the most to put your team in a position to win, right? You have to buy the most players. A lot of times it was under the table, or it was facilities, resources, recruiting budgets. Now it's just flat out spending money. I'm going to follow the money. And I do think, you mentioned the defense, I do think it is bringing guys like David Bailey and Lee Hunter on the defensive side of the ball that I know Joey McGuire is excited about. And he knows what he's got in Baron Morton, and I'm concerned somewhat about the issues he's had injury-wise. I don't love the schedule for him because they do play some of the top teams all on the road. I'm bullish on Utah this year, bullish, but that they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. You have to travel there. You have to travel to Arizona State. You have to travel to Kansas State, who you already heard me say I'm pretty bullish on them. So 3-year conference opponents at the top of the conference are all on the road. But even still, I feel like they'll be able to push around and impose their physicality on the rest of the Big 12. That's where I do think the difference comes in. They get Quentin Joyner running the football, offensive line funds continuity early with the schedule that's pretty manageable, in a couple cakewalk games that they should be able to kind of find themselves in those first one. Oregon State, tricky little game, but I think they win that one. So I think they start off strong. I had them at 9-3. I'm not going under. I wouldn't bet the under on this one because I do think they're just going to be. And so I got to talk to Joey McGuire this week. He said the depth. He said he's never had this much depth on a team, that he felt like, hey, if we do lose guys, we still have guys that we can plug in right after them. So not only some of the guys they brought in the portal, but they've got some depth on the defensive side of the ball too. I feel pretty good about them, so I'm going to go over. Are you concerned?
Let me add Romello Height, by the way, from Georgia Tech as another one that you're just like, geez, that was one of the best players in the ACC last year. So are you concerned at all about the way that this team has blown leads and kind of let games slip away recently?
Somewhat, but I know that's something they've been harping on, and that's something like finish. That's like cliche. Every coach says we're going to finish. We got to finish this year. But I do think that almost is something you can harp on your team during games, so they do kind of close out games better. And Hassel asked me one time, we were doing a Texas Tech preview, and he said, Can Baron Morton be a difference maker? I don't know if he has to. I think if he keeps playing and he has to stay healthy, first of all, or else you're potentially looking at Mitch Griffiths, like an old Wake Forest quarterback.
Hold on. I think Will.
They've also got Will Ham. They've got some guys on there, but I do you clearly you want to ride with the starter with Baron Morton because he's been pretty good when he's been out there. I think if he just maintains the way he's been playing, that's the way I view Cade Klubnik too at Clemson. The way you've seen the best of him, just maintain that. I think they'll be fine. I don't think he has to be somebody that goes out there and plays like Cam Ward did for Miami, or somebody who goes nuts. Maybe like Will Howard, where you can just come up in those big situations. And I think Will Howard was probably underappreciated last year. But I think you want from him the consistency, which I think you'll get from him, realizing what they've got on defense.
Chipalytics got me to 9.5. And I was like, whoa, easy. And that's when I had to come in and just pump the brakes, because then I started checking and I was like, so clearly I'm over 8.5. I feel good about that. And I said, can I get to 10? Looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook odds of 10 plus, I cannot. I am scarred by seeing the way that this team just really did hand away. I think it was the TCU game was one of them. Texas Tech was in that Big 12 title mix, but they were not one of the teams that finished in the four-way tie for first place because they let some of those games get away. So I do need to see them finish before I take a big jump like that. 1.5 wins over their win total. But yeah, as we are putting out sort of our official leans here, minus 152 is not something I'm rushing to bet. But yeah, 9-3 feels like the right schedule here for Texas Tech in a much hyped season. How many games are going to win this fall? Scott Frost, don't take the wrong job. Just come back to the right job. Back in Orlando, UCF over under win total of 5.5. No crazy juice on this one. Over minus 112, under minus 108, which means that we get not a true 50-50 proposition, but at least as much of a coin flip as you're going to get with the win totals. Danny Kanell, is UCF a bowl team?
This one I felt kind of like TCU, where I was truly like a coin flip. I talked myself into 6 wins, which makes me a little bit nervous. I heard Scott Frost at the podium the other day. He was talking about his quarterbacks, and they've got I think 4 on the depth chart. And he was trying to make the case. And he literally, he made that thing and he said, well, people say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I vehemently disagree. Like, I think it is not clear who's going to be your guy. And that concerns me, not to mention all of them have had, checkered pass, not off the field, just checkered pass as far as their careers have gone. Taven Jackson, of course, comes in from Indiana. I think he's an expected guy, but he really hasn't taken that, by the horns. Cam Fancher, the old Marshall who went to FAU, it was a disaster there. Davi Belford, another name on there, who's a young guy who didn't play at Virginia Tech last year. It's hard for me to really get up here and pound the table on the over. I do think they do have some athletes on the team. There's a ton of turnover, as you would expect. So I feel like they can be competitive in a lot of their games. So I went over. But, man, I found myself putting down L's more confidently than the W's. So,
loss at Kansas State.
Yep.
Loss at Baylor.
Yep.
Loss at Texas Tech.
Yep.
Loss at BYU.
Correct.
That's a tough road trip. What do you have for North Carolina?
Loss.
Kansas.
I had that one as a 50-50.
Yeah, a little 50-50. It is good for UCF that you do get Kansas, West Virginia, Houston, Oklahoma State at home. If they can bring the bounce house back, if they can have some kind of great home field advantage or home field environment, then yeah, you might be able to string together enough. I'm on the under. It's not my most confident, but that's what happens when we're doing that, because we do win totals with integrity around here, Danny. And we're not just, we hold ourselves to it. If you do a win up here, then that needs to be a loss on the other end. UCF was just a team that, like Arizona, I think we mentioned on Monday in the Big 12 Win Totals Part 1, if Arizona's awesome, then my whole system has fallen apart. Because I've given Arizona as the L. I've given them L's that have been W's for everybody else. I found myself handing out wins for a lot of other teams with UCF just because I've got so much more confidence in the other rosters. I can say big picture that I believe that Scott Frost can have an electric offense, an athletic roster, and one that is exactly what UCF can be in the Big 12. I'm just not ready to jump on it right here in year one with some of those toss-up games in Orlando. That's where I think that Houston in the year 2 of Willie Fritz, that's where I think Kansas on the bounce back. I think that those are teams that might be able to go in and get a win, therefore leaving them just a hair short. So I've got them 5-7 overall and under 5.5.
Count them out.
A lot of buzz about a potential bounce back for the Utah Utes. Over under win total at FanDuel Sportsbook set at 7.5 wins. Over -164, under +134. We are bringing in Devin Dampier. We are bringing in it's similar to what we get. Where else what we have in Oklahoma, where John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle. We're doing the same thing here where we're getting our offensive coordinator and our quarterback from New Mexico. So Devin Dampier comes over, tries to bring some life into an offense that was, sort of haunted by the ghost of Cam Rising over the course of the last 2 years. Hopefully you get some better injury luck, which has kind of been an issue on the whole roster over the last 2 seasons. What are you doing with this Utah team?
So I feel like this is similar to the Mike Gundy line of thinking. When are you going to, continue to see Utah struggle after one season that didn't meet their standards? Or are we going to go right back to the standard that even in the Pac-12 was compete for conference championships? Because I remember last year, almost unanimously, if you asked Cover 3 Pod or anybody involved with college football, who has the best chance to own the Big 12 without Oklahoma and Texas, it was Utah.
Yep.
Their physicality, the style of play. Devin Dampier, I know Tom has been a big fan of his. A little bit concerned about that he has to take the next step as a passer, but we're all aware he was an over 1,000-yard rusher last season as well. I think that's where that could really provide a spark to this offense. Now, he's got to stay healthy. You mentioned the issues they've had. That concerns me mildly. Like if he gets hurt, all bets are off the table, but that's not almost every team. You have to take that in consideration. So I had them 1.5 games over. I had them at 9-3. I'm bullish on the Utes this season, kind of getting back to the standard that Kyle Whittingham set for them, pretty much since he's been there.
Was it Devontae Booker? Is that an old Utah running back?
Yeah, I think so.
When I see a really good offensive line, when I see a defense that is, big, good size, good experience, especially at linebacker, I think that they don't need to have some kind of wide open passing attack. I mean, this can be a Utah team that wins with physicality at the line of scrimmage. Devin Dampier doesn't need to throw the ball 35 times a game. Maybe it is a little bit more of utilizing his legs in the ground game. I think that this is the continuity advantage for him. They're not going to ask him to do something that he can't do. They're going to ask him to clean up some of the mistakes that he made last year as they take a step up in competition from the Mountain West to the Big 12. I gave him wins against Cal Poly, Wyoming, Colorado, and Cincinnati. Colorado and Cincinnati being home games. Salt Lake City being, for my money, one of the toughest road environments you've got. Then, not a lot of surefire losses, but not a lot of surefire wins. Another big volatility, the team for me. The at UCLA game, while I will, let's see, we're in minute 52. While I might complain about this 11 p.m. Eastern time kickoff on the Saturday of week 1 when we're doing Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, fired up for what it means for both of those teams. Could absolutely see that game going either way. If they're able to pull it over as a win to their side, huge for this win total. Same goes for the home games against Texas Tech and Arizona State. If they are, generating some buzz, if the that student section is coming out and making a lot of noise, you could have a Utah team that enters the second half of the schedule sitting on a 5-1, sort of shooting up in the top 25 and really maybe being a factor in the Big 12. I'm not going to jump all the way to the 9+ minus 164 is not something I'm excited to bet. But yeah, throw me down at 8-4. Throw me down as Utah as an over on this one.
Did you see they are almost a touchdown favorite against UCLA? I was kind of surprised the number was that big. I put that down as a W almost. I had it before, and then I was like, oh yeah, definitely. I put it down in pen, not pencil. I would come back to haunt us for sure.
I'm not. Hey, I am not putting that one down in.
The other thing too about Kyle Whittingham, they always have one of the best front sevens. In the Pac-12, they always kind of were the top tier of them, and I think that would carry over. And they haven't hit the portal much, which tells me they feel pretty good about their defense.
Yeah, I mean that's Morgan Scalley, who's the coach in waiting there. That's his bread and butter. He gets to carry on the legacy, which is why Kyle Whittingham got the job and has held on to the job. That is the identity of Utah football in the 21st century. I'm 100% still expecting them to have that. I will not have Utah -7 as a lock on the Week 1 Locks podcast. That one's a live bet city if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Count them up. And bringing it home in the Big 12 with the West Virginia Mountaineers. Rich Rod's back. And the over-under win total at FanDuel Sportsbook is set at 5.5 wins, with the over at +118, the under at -144. You look at the transfer portal hauls that we have throughout all of college football, and West Virginia is right up there with just a totally rebooted roster. Now, they're not all unfamiliar to Rich Rodriguez, as he is doing what we've seen a lot of these coaches do as they make the jump. He's bringing some guys from Jacksonville State. He's bringing some coaches from Jacksonville State. So as we look at West Virginia in the season ahead, what stands out to you? Which way are you going on the win total?
I want this to work. And I know it's been a storyline of guys returning to place where they had a lot of success. It's a totally different landscape of college football now. They're not in the same conference. They're in the Big 12. I think that's been a big, struggle for West Virginia, both travel and resources kind of catching up to everybody there. You mentioned it. I mean, I use that our lads website to see who's new, and they have the color coded, like they have the
orange
transfers are in orange.
Yeah.
And there is way too much orange for me to be like, yeah, feeling great about it. Now, Rich Rod did point out, he's like, they didn't all leave necessarily. Like he was kind of saying this could be a good thing. Like, and I do agree with him. Like the roster, I don't think was one of those cupboard is full. I think it was more towards the cupboard is bare. But that process, I think, takes a little bit longer to unfold. So I would expect year 2 for them to make a big jump. I went down there. I'm on the under. Again, it's a wide open conference. Wouldn't be shocked if they were able to kind of, turn it around somewhat. But for me, I think this is an under. And it's juiced heavily at under too, right?
Yeah, I mean, minus 144 to the under. Yeah. They'll beat Bobby Moe. That'll be fun. That'll be a great day running it up on Robert Morris. But
yeah,
I mean, are you even ready to confidently give them at Ohio?
No. I
mean, Pitt's going to be Pitt's kind of a war, obviously, but you got UCF. I wish I saw an Arizona. I think that even within the context of the Big 12, where there's no easy schedules and there's no tough schedules, the fact that you're getting, Arizona State in there, the fact that you're getting Texas Tech in there, it's a little bit of a tough draw along the way. Tough travel from Morgantown, West Virginia out to Provo when you've got to go play BYU as well. So I do not love it, but I know
Bud has said this, I think, a few times, like in a season like this, like typically if you're a team contending, you want your toughest opponents at home. Mm-hmm. This is one where you almost wish you had that Morgantown advantage against some of the teams that felt more winnable, So the fact that you do get Utah at home, Pitt at home, is that Pitt? Is that neutral or is that in Morgantown? Is that neutral? I think it's back in Morgantown. I'm pretty sure it's there. Yeah. So like even that game, I guess that's the one that you do, but like having Texas Tech at home, TCU at home, Utah at home, I don't know if that's necessarily the season that you would want them at home, because I think those teams are just at a different level right now.
Great point, and thank you for bringing up Bud. He did send in his answers, and I think that we should deliver it. So on Kansas, he likes the over. All right, we're in on Landslide Polled. Kansas State under. Ooh, maybe a little lock war he doesn't know about. Depends on if he watches the show back. Oklahoma State, he's on the under. TCU, he's got the over. Texas Tech, also on the over. He's got UCF under. Utah over. So it looks like that might be a little UNITY. Then he's also got West Virginia under. Any surprise you there? I don't think so.
The Kansas State one under surprised me because I've got them going to the Big 12 championship game, so we're on opposite ends there.
Yeah, I'll take that. If we go to war over Kansas State, I'll ride with Chris Kleiman on that one. I feel comfortable. All right, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time, we will be back tackling some of the biggest news in college football, as well as some of your questions and our answers. You want to do chalk donkeys? Yeah, sure. We'll do chalk donkeys. And Spotify comments, big old bag of mail, lots to get into. Next week, Win Totals rolls on with the Atlantic Coast Conference, and you can follow him on Twitter at Danny Kanell. You can follow me at Chip _Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.